Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna Huang. Welcome to our Zoom webinar, Data Insights and Future Directions, a public briefing on cross-state K-12 Chinese language program survey findings. This webinar is presented to you by We as One Education and also the Minnesota Council on the Teaching of Language and Cultures, MCTLC. I serve currently as the founder and executive director for We as One Education, as well as the secretary and soon to be the advocacy chair for MCTLC. Here's our agenda. Today's goal is to raise awareness of a recent decline of Chinese language programs across Minnesota, and also to bring to your attention some Chinese educators' career crisis when they're losing their job, and also to provide some possible remedies and our current plan to support the teachers and the Chinese programs. But more importantly, let's connect as a broader community because we need all your voices and efforts. To reach today's goal, here is today's agenda. We will spend 10 minutes to introduce us and 25 minutes to present data and survey findings. And then another 20 minutes to share some best practice and case studies of some thriving Chinese language programs and some support that We as One Education and MCTLC are currently in planning. And then we'll save 5 minutes for Q&A. First, about us. We as One Education, first known as We as One Camp, first established 6 years ago in 2020. Starting the first day, the goal of We as One, the mission of us never changed. We thrive to use world language and culture as a bridge to provide all students, later expanded to all educators and community members, a richer sense of who we are, where we come from, and what we can build together as a community. But our key pedagogy is really to do all of that through real life experience and opportunities, because it's our strong belief that nobody can learn without real, sometimes need to be positive personal experiences. Here is a timeline of our history. We started 6 years ago with the impact of George Floyd happened in Minnesota and the 3 years of frustration of COVID. So we started online camp to support Black Lives Matter movement. And then next year we did a half in-person camp to support the Stop AAPI Hate. And not until our third year, we started to really focus on building a DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging-centered curriculum. And we started to working with other Asian communities in Minnesota, such as the Hmong community. And then 2023, it's our first year to host a full day camp. From our first 3 years, we've donated up to $16,400 to support all mostly Asian lower income family causes in Minnesota. But by our fourth year, we realized maybe we could be a sustainable, our own cause. So this is the first year that we started to really focus on what is our vision and mission and to build our website and our programming. So last year in March, We as One has officially become We as One Education, which is a Minnesota nonprofit. While we are focusing on developing more solid language to community curriculum, we are also building our youth programming because we believe that our next generation really is the key to help sustain language and culture education. And we also, as we're focusing on to help the world language educators with their career development and advocacy for world language programs. Our name, the We as One, you might want to ask, who are we? We really means everybody that's involved in the education, from our K through 16 students to the educators, families, and school administrators, and also the researchers that's developing the world language and culture teaching theories, and university level policymakers, government officials that's involved in all the education, especially world language grants and founding the budgets and other nonprofits that are in this area with us together. So that said, our three driving values are our goal really is to create, whether students or teacher or even family members, to help us all become intercultural citizenship. And through that, to do that, like I said, we're really wanted to create an authentic learning experience. But our ultimate goal is really to use our knowledge to take actions. I'm here with two of my other colleagues. Dr. Tu Yao currently serve our community engagement coordinator. She is the associate director of the Chinese flagship program at the University of Minnesota. Also the faculty coordinator for the college and school CIS program at the University of Minnesota and works with many high school teachers and students in Minnesota. Ting Ting Schultz is our current We as One curriculum coordinator. She is a PhD student in language and literacy, world language education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison's Department of Curriculum and Instruction. And other than those two awesome officers, we also work with a group of very capable teachers, and we have 5 board members that you can find on our website that's oversees and supervising us. So we're also here with the Minnesota Council on the Teaching of Language and Cultures, MCTLC. Today with us, we have Bryce Johnson, our current president. So Bryce will talk a little bit about MCTLC.
Thank you, Johanna. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bryce Johnson, and I am the president of the Minnesota Council on the Teaching of Languages and Culture. And we are the Minnesota chapter for ACTFL. And so we have a relatively long history. The Minnesota Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages and Cultures was founded in 1961. And our mission is to advance the teaching of languages and cultures in Minnesota. And so since its inception, MCTLC has been dedicated to supporting language and culture educators across the state, and we've been characterized by a spirit of activism and cooperation. So as an organization, of course, we hold annual conferences, but in between those, we look for opportunities to support local world language teachers and to advance world language education throughout the state. We are committed to advocacy for all language programs. World language education is central to the mission and values of all school districts throughout the state. We believe that it offers students the opportunity to explore diverse cultures, languages, and perspectives. We believe that integrating critical cultural awareness into world language curriculum can empower students to challenge stereotypes, biases, and prejudices based on race or ethnicity. We believe that without language and culture education, an anti-racist and culturally responsive curriculum lacks depth and context. We also believe connection to world language and culture education empowers students to become agents of change and social justice in their own communities and beyond. And so as an organization, we are firmly committed to advocating for teachers and students of languages statewide. Recently, we've had the opportunity to reach out to principals, superintendents, school boards about, in particular, Chinese language programs that are potentially going to be cut, and reaching out, advocating for those programs to remain and to continue servicing the students and the communities where they are at. In particular, we have had positive feedback from one principal who we reached out to, who has committed to maintain the program as far as he can foresee. So with that, I'll turn the time back over to Johanna, and but happy to be here, happy to be supporting We as One, and excited for this research and for everything that it can do to continue providing teachers and students and families and the community and stakeholders of Chinese language education throughout the state of Minnesota.
Thank you, Bryce. We'll go into our second part, which is our data report. Not only we will share some survey data, but we'll also share our general data and research about the Minnesota and also the National World Language Programs, current status. Before I go into data sharing, in education, we always wanted to talk about the why first. I recently got my graduate certificate at Johns Hopkins School of Education in leadership of technology integration. And during my courses, we often talk about data-driven decision making, which means what do we need all those overwhelming data for? In our days, there's so much data, right? So there's two quotes that always kind of stuck with me during my course, and I want to share with you today. The first one says, statistics are used to tell the data story. Descriptive statistics help us summarize data, but the real power lies with inferential statistics, which help us use data to answer powerful questions. When you go through the data with us today, please keep that in your mind. What powerful questions that we should be asking? The second one is from a TED Talk called What Do We Do with All This Big Data? And it came out 11 years ago, and this still works really well because now we have even more technology and data floating around us. This one says data does not create meaning. They're just numbers, but we do. So as citizens, we have a responsibility to spend more time focusing on our critical thinking skills. When we look at those data, we should ask questions like, how did we get here? Why did this happen? If data shows a trend, we have to look deeper and asking those powerful questions. So that said, our data sources are as listed here. We'll share a link about the Modern Language Association's two reports. This is a national organization that does the most thorough data research on world language. So for the recent one, they surveyed about 2,500 colleges and universities of world language programming. When it comes to kindergarten through 12th grade data, there is no national, like said, big number research, but we did request data from the Minnesota Department of Education. They have a data pool called the Minnesota Common Course category, a catalog. And of course, it's our recent survey focusing on the K through 12 Chinese language programs in Minnesota. But we also used a variety of Minnesota public and private schools' websites to research whether those schools do have or used to have Chinese programs. But last but not least, we talked to numerous Chinese teachers, and their stories really is a very important part of the data. So in terms of national world language data, according to the reports from Modern Language Association, in the past 15 to 18 years, all languages, all cross boards are dropping. So Chinese was still holding up between 2009 and 2013, but in their latest data is 2021. So the last 10 years, Chinese have dropped 15%. Cross language, cross country wise. When you look at all languages, the average is 16.6 according to the report. If we focus on Minnesota, it's actually worse than the average nation-wise. So if we go back, if you look at this number, it's about 17%. But in Minnesota, world language enrollment in college level actually declined about 24%, with a total loss of over 6,000 students in the world language programs, across world language, not just Chinese. Like we mentioned before, we request data from the Minnesota Department of Education from their data pool called MCCC, Minnesota Common Course Catalog. So what this data pool does is that it requests different school districts to report the courses that they're offering to their allotted K through 12 schools. A lot of data are from middle and high school and the different levels, the students group they serve. So we have that data. And then we cross compared it with our own research of those school district data. So basically, if according to MCCC's data, this school had offered Chinese course before, but now we cannot find those Chinese teachers information, Chinese course information on the school or district website, then these courses have already been eliminated from the world language department of the school. So according to this cross-check, at least 19 schools in Minnesota have entirely cut their world language program. All right. So we as one and MCTLC did a survey of K through Chinese language program in Minnesota. We rolled the survey out February the 16th, and the survey ended on April the 30th. And we shared the survey through our own network to over 200 Chinese language educators in Minnesota. According to our data pool, there's about somewhere around 250 current Chinese language educators in our state. And then we have an overwhelming response. So half of the current Minnesota Chinese language teaching force have responded to this survey, which shows us a urgency in this matter. And out of those 104 respondents, actually more than half left their name. So the survey is anomalous, like you don't need to use your real name, but we have an optional question for you to leave your contact. More than half of them actually want to know the result of the survey and also the support that we can give them. And we will issue an official data report to share with the public by the end of May. Okay, there are two purposes of this survey. One is to collect data on the current situation of reduced enrollment, fewer teaching hours, or the cuts of positions in our state's Chinese language program over the past 5 years. And then to understand the impact on those teachers who was teaching those programs or who lost their programs in the past 5 years. And also, while the positions are getting reduced and cut, we want to also understand how the teachers are currently being supported by our school, by our administrating, by our state founding, and what really are their needs are. So back to my two quotes before we start, those are our powerful questions. We today wanted to share 5 key preliminary findings. And again, a very detailed report will show up in our official report by the end of May. But according to the survey results, we asked about 20 something questions. And here are 5 areas that we felt that we can report in this meeting. So finding A is the widespread of program decline. The Chinese language programs in Minnesota are facing a significant reduction. And again, our data are researching the programming in the past 5 years. It's pretty recent. So during the past 5 years, 80 teacher, about 77% of the respondents says their programs is facing students enrollment declining. And then 42 said they have received cuts to their program founding, whether it's their school principal telling them we don't have enough money to support you to sustain the size of your classroom, or they've been receiving outside school funding that's just no longer going to continue. I just had a teacher this week reporting to me that they've been receiving $10,000 every year from outside source, and then that funding is going to stop this incoming school year. So that said, it triggered a deeper job insecurity feeling in the current educators, and then which will lead to the educator retention concerns in Minnesota. So our data shows there's a potential educator retention crisis in the field of Chinese language instruction in Minnesota. You can see there's almost 30 and then 25. This area, the teachers express they're somewhat worried and very worried that their programming, their still existing program that will get cut in the next 2 years is this question. And out of all the teachers that we ask them this another question, how likely would you leave teaching entirely if your program gets cut? There's a certain number of teachers together, I think 40, says somewhat likely to leave and very likely to leave the profession if their program getting cut. But also we can see there's a huge needs of teacher support because almost 40 teacher answered unsure. They don't know how to even understand or even start to think about what their next step would be if they get cut from their current Chinese teaching program, because a majority of teacher will get to the next finding is they're very highly trained, they're very passionate about their teaching career, so they don't know how to deal with this crisis of their current job getting cut. So when we talk about the teaching force of Chinese language programming, we are at risk of losing a large group of highly qualified educator of color. According to our survey, a significant number of Chinese language educators in Minnesota are Asian, and a majority holds master degrees. Almost 78% of our teachers says they currently hold a Tier 3 or Tier 4 Minnesota teaching license. And Minnesota has a Tier 1 to 4 license system. Tier 4 being the highest level of, Minnesota teaching license, meaning the district and our teacher preparation programs and the state have put a lot of money and a lot of energy to train those teachers. But without timely and targeted effective interventions, our state stand to lose this very well educated and trained teaching force. So some question results to share with you. 93% of our current teaching force are Asian. 91 holds master degree. Almost 79% has a Tier 3, Tier 4 licensure. This last question is also very concerning because out of our current teaching force, there's a lot of first generation immigrants. And you can see here 24% actually is really depending on a work visa called H1B that's sponsored by their current school or district, which means if their job got cut, those teachers have no choice but finding another sponsor, and they might have to be unwillingly forced to find jobs outside our state who can keep sponsoring their job visa. Our next preliminary finding is a urgent need for teacher licensure support. So one of our question asked, do you believe that if you don't have a Tier 3 and Tier 4, if you have a Tier 1 and 2, do you believe that obtaining a higher tier license, or maybe you're a teacher like me who already have I have two Tier 4 licenses, but if you just have one, would you want to add a additional licensure area, maybe social studies or maybe ESL or maybe teaching math onto their current license? Do you believe that it will actually increase your chance of staying in the profession? As you can see, over 50 teachers answered yes, absolutely. And a lot of them are not sure. So there's a lot of teachers are either very sure they want to go up a little bit in their teacher license area or adding additional license. And then there's some that are just willing to get educated in this field. However, with that big need, we also found out many teachers responded they have very limited or no access to support. 43 of our respondents have never received any professional development training or resources that are specifically aiming to help them to grow or sustain their Chinese language programs. 77, almost 80 teachers have never received any financial support from their district or government to pursue a higher level license or additional license. And even there are some teachers, 20%, you see the blue in this question, that answered they have received financial support. Out of those educators, only half of them reported that the funding that they received was effective, which means they got what they wanted, either higher level teaching license or additional license, which kind of also, there's a good question here to ask, why did those financial support did not really meet the teacher's specific needs? Those are the 5 areas of key findings. And again, a very detailed report will come out to share with you by the end of May. We do have to also list out some survey data limitation. One is our participating pool is restricted to current and former Chinese program educators. So we didn't survey school administrators or policymakers, so there could be a limited representation from them. For example, our last question, right? A school or district could totally tell us that we have been spending a lot of money trying to support our teachers, but we don't understand why they think it's ineffective. So there could be a good question there. And some schools or regions of Chinese programs may be underrepresented. And also the self-reporting nature of the responders, and also because the information is collected voluntarily, which could have some potential bias or incorrect data. The survey is designed and distributed in both English and Chinese, but even that, it could be some language barrier there for certain teachers that could misunderstand a question and give a incorrect answer. All right. Now we're moving on to our next steps. How can we support the teachers? Was the data? We understand a little bit better of the current condition of the Minnesota K through 12 Chinese world language program and the educators who's teaching those programs needs, and then how the supporting is not where we want to be yet. How can we, again, ask the most important questions and then support the teachers and the programs a little bit better? Before we enter part 3, the next steps, I want to re-stress our goal for this meeting. The goal is really not to offer a one-time solution to the decline of Chinese language programs, right? Because it's been happening for a while, and there's a lot of deeper reasons that why we are here. Rather, our goal for now is really to raise awareness to this issue and to share this message widely and spark some collective action on the two fronts. One is to support and sustain the still existing Chinese programs as a united community. And number 2 is to empower the teachers with broader career options so that Minnesota does not lose this valuable and experienced teaching force. So with those 2 goals in our head, we will proceed into part 3. I was at a American Council of Teaching Foreign Languages, ACFL, national meeting last year. There is a teacher, William Lee, who was our 2023 National Language Teacher of the Year. He did a little speech and immediately wrote it down because it really resonated with me. William said we need to work together to let our students and their families to know the value of world language. There's numerous researches of how, if your child go through immersion program, you probably already know this, like how valuable to learn a language when you are younger and even middle high school, especially that language is something like Chinese, which is fundamentally different than the remaining letter-based English, Spanish, and French. How valuable it is to not only benefit your child's entire brain development, cognitive development, and it will affect their learning of increase their ability to learn other things and like math and English reading. There's a lot of research than that, but for me, the value of world language is really to show students the culture and the understanding of using my own culture to bridge other cultures and together create this community to kind of use our language and culture competency to work together and then empower the broader community. That is the value. So how can we actually deliver that to students? According to the research, we're going back to our the Modern Language Association's reports. So the researchers actually, when they researched the 2,500 colleges of their world languages, although there is a national decline, we talk about the numbers about 16.6% nationally across world language, not just Chinese. They're all going down. But amongst those 2,500 colleges, there are some small cases that are thriving. And after some deep case studies, the researchers found all those little spots, they're shining, they're growing, their world language programs share a lot of things in common. And one thing that keeps jumping out is their cultural emphasis in their language program that align with student interests and the local community needs. And then they're building relationship with external organizations that equips students with valuable credentials and experiences. And then usually those programs have certificates that help students and they do award and celebration of their language and culture learning while the program has really worked beyond the classroom. So based on this, we want to share two examples, one in Minnesota, one in Indiana. The first case we want to share is Visitation School, Minnesota, which is where I teach. It's a K to 12 all girls school. And our feeder school, elementary schools that are other private schools where rarely they would offer Chinese in elementary level. So when they come to our middle school, usually the students would choose Spanish naturally because they had Spanish before. So a few years ago, we changed as a collective force in my school, me and my principals and other world language teachers sit together and we agreed that it's to the students' bigger benefit if we have them tour all three languages. Instead of sixth grade, you have to pick one language. We changed the course enrollment policy in sixth grade. So when the new middle schoolers come to visitation, they actually get to experience Chinese, Spanish, and French. Then they pick. That change along have brought so many more students into Chinese classes because they never had any experience with Chinese. And we also brought in the Minnesota Bilingual SEALs Certificate Program, and we did award ceremony to celebrate their language learning. This bilingual SEALs program also bringing potential college credits. These are the two events we had this year for the AAPI month celebration, and this one is the Lantern Festival back in February. As you can see, we try to work with a bigger community, so we invite all our whole school, elementary, all the way up, no matter whether it's a teacher, faculty, or you are in other languages, you're all invited to come to those bigger community celebrations. And I also create more language to community experience for my students. So I take them, we learn about the history of Chinese, Taiwanese, and sometimes we work on other Asian communities like Hmong, which is a large Asian community in Minnesota. And I take them out for field trips that really echoes with their classroom learning. So field trips are not just a fun thing. It actually is part of our learning, which brings a deeper meaning into my students' learning. So that said, all those actions that's me and another Chinese teacher try to work on in the past 5 years had resulted in our current middle school student number is at the largest out of my school's history, which will feed into high school in a year or two, and we'll have the biggest Chinese enrollment in our school history in high school. Another example I want to share is Logan Sport High School in Indiana. This great teacher, as you can see, is in the middle, Miss Guan Chunmei, Guan 老师. At her school, Chinese is the absolutely favorite class for any high schoolers. Chinese is their first pick. And if the classes fill really quick, if they don't get their first pick and they have to go to other languages, but Chinese is always the first one to fill, is because Miss Guan's years of efforts in creating community-based and certificate-based, and she brings all sorts of people from outside of the school, including politicians and the other community members into her Chinese program. As you can see, it's very successful. I also want to mention that the reason why we're sharing those two schools as best practices today is that sometimes when they think about the Chinese student enrollment decline, oftentimes the first reason that jump in our mind is it's related to politics, right? Like it's the power play between China and the US. That's why families don't favor Chinese anymore. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm not denying that the politics plays a big part of it, but my point is if there are still things to try. For example, as most of you know, Indiana is actually known as a red state. And my school visitation is actually a Catholic school. We still manage to really work together with our community and really increase the students' enrollment. Okay, so there's a few initiatives that we as One Education is gonna promoting in with the goal of helping empowering Chinese teachers with curriculum writing and their career development. So this one is our Rooted in Culture Connected Through Community Fellowship for Asian Language Educators. This is a project supported by the Liberal Arts Engagement Hub by University of Minnesota. We'll get a lot of funding from them and then the space and then all the support starting in September to create a group of strong Asian language teachers, including Chinese, to help to strengthen our current world language curriculum with the aim of shifting it from the target language-based curriculum to language with community-based curriculum. So as you can see here, we have been doing a lot of things in our own classrooms. This one is our summer camp. We invite a lot of people to come in as guest speakers. They bring their own story, so the students don't need to leave their classroom, then they still get the community. And then this one is another nonprofit in Minnesota, 自然, which is a community educational based nonprofit. And those are the two founders coming in my classroom and educating my students about protecting Earth. They speak Chinese. And this one is another middle school unit we did with our last year's We as One camp. The students learned the history from the Minnesota Chinese Friendship Garden, which is in Phelan Park, and the beautiful stories behind it in their classrooms, in their target language. And then we work with the Chinese Friendship Garden Society, their nonprofit board members and their leaders would come in and then be interviewed by our campers. And then we go out in the garden to do project-based learning. So that was really a meaningful experience for our campers and the teachers. We want to create more of those curriculum in the hope of to help the students and families to find the why and then to help us promote the Chinese programs more instead of you're learning Chinese to go to China one day. No school is guaranteed to have a China trip. And frankly, if that's your end goal of learning Chinese, it's very unreasonable for a lot of families cannot afford that trip. So our really the goal for us is to promoting the real why, the value behind learning Chinese and the Asian culture. The next initiative that we are doing is to supporting teachers with their career development. So we as one is going to have our own teacher additional licensure cohort starting September. The goal is to provide teachers online in-person training sessions and start this cohort to support each other, to try to add on additional licensure or maybe to support teachers to increase their tier level from tier 1, 2 to tier 3, 4 of their Minnesota licensure system. Okay, on the other hand, we wanted to empower our youth, which is our current students that's already in the Chinese learning program. We're starting our We as One Youth Board next year, and to create a language to action youth league. We might have a special name that we haven't thought of yet. We as One is a certified nonprofit organization to receive the President's Volunteer Service Award, which is the national certification programming. All the middle high schoolers are involved in this programming, can come with all different Chinese programs at different schools. So all the teachers can offer this program to their students and encourage them to take Chinese and join this Language to Action Youth League. And then we as one could be the one that support the teachers, the students, and in arranging all their activities, field trips, volunteering experience, and then in the end to help them create this celebration that was the awards. Okay, on the other hand, part 2 of the possible remedies. According to the same research, support from administration offices and other departments is also vital to help to support the language program and teachers. And adequate funding is crucial to support like all the initiatives that I just mentioned. So here's the part that all of us can do. One is to advocate for our Chinese language programs. If your school needs it, reach out to us. Bryce is our current president. I am moving from the secretary to an advocacy chair role next year. We can support you to send an advocacy letter to your principal, the district leader to advocate for your program. And we can also help arrange public meetings and hearings or project collaborations with Minnesota Department or Minnesota Professional Educator Licensing and Standard Board, PELSB, which is a separate organization that issues and supporting teachers with their licensures. And a collective action really needs all of you to join us. So whether you are a parent, a teacher, a policymaker, or anybody whose heart is with promoting language and culture learning, you can help us today is to follow us on social media. If you go look We as One Education or MCTLC, we have our Facebook page if you use Facebook. The We as One website is weasoneeducation.org. We have a lot of updates in the news and events section. Or you can make a donation to us. Every gift, no matter what size, helps us to continue to build our program and support our teachers. Or you can come and join us for events, volunteering. And if you're a teacher, please follow us and pay attention to when those initiatives open and join us for our training session, our cohorts. Our next volunteer opportunity, the We as One will have a booth. If you're a gymming parent, we will be there Friday, May the 30th in your carnival. And then if you're going to the Plymouth Asian Fair on Saturday, May the 31st, we'll also be there. So if you want to come interact with us, we have some activities for the children's to do. Come meet our teachers, talk to me, share your insights and talents. We always love to have parents come volunteer or be guest speakers at our camp. So join us. Your little effort, your little step forward will play a big part in supporting our teachers and our Chinese programs. Again, this is a re-recording for our webinar that happened May the 14th. So in the webinar, we did a few minutes of question and answer. If you did not participate in the webinar, we highly encourage you to reach out to us. If you have any insights to share, if you want to come join our cause, if you wanted to come volunteer or meet with us or just have a particular question, you could go to our website, weasoneeducation.org, and there's the donate support us page, and then We as One Camp is right here. You can read all about us. If you want to contact us, just leave us a message, or you could send me an email to weasonecamp@gmail.com. All right. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in person. Bye.